Hello, everyone. This is Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices. And today we're going to interview Suzanne Kelly, who runs a shop in Palmer's Green on Green Lanes called Stitch, and she'll tell you about that in a minute. Anyhow, this is one of the regular webinars and interviews we do, where we interview people locally or even nationally or sometimes even globally who are trying to make a difference in the world we live in. And many of them have interesting stories in what they're doing. Now, Suzanne has an interesting story. She's going to tell us about it. If you are on our webinar site at all, please, you can type questions in the right-hand column. If you're watching us through Facebook live stream, you can type in the comment column and we'll try and pick some of those up. Anyhow, Suzanne, thank you for joining us and taking part in this webinar today. Now, you've got this shop in Palmer's Green in Green Lanes called Stitch. I mean, without going into detail, because we're going into that in the webinar itself, can you tell us about Stitch and what it is and whether it's actually more than just a shop?
Yes, Stitch Crafts and Classes is a brand new initiative. We opened the 1st of May, so we're very new. We haven't been here very long at all. It's all got up and running very quickly. Our main aims and objectives are to involve people from all walks of life, young and old, and come to this space in Palmer's Green to be creative, be part of the community and have fun, and to make things, which is what people in the background here are doing right now. We've got our Knit and Natter taking place, which happens every Wednesday from 11 till 1. And we also offer sewing, haberdashery, craft materials in the shop. So we're doing crafts and classes. Okay,
well, you've sort of done the whole interview in that answer, but I'm sure that we can, do a bit more. Now, I think what would interest people a lot, first of all, is your background. I mean, you're doing Stitch, you're doing this. I mean, how did you get from that? You told me you once were a BBC production manager, so it's a big step from doing that to doing what you're doing now. What was your personal journey?
Well, I did a degree in visual and performed arts, and I've always been interested in being an artist, making my own things, and I went down the television path of producing and making and that kind of thing. We got together, me and my two business partners, Karen Mountainer and Carol Balfour, purely for serendipity, really, when we met through the closure of the shop Rodwin's in Southgate, N14, which have been in our neighbourhood for pretty much 60 years. I've lived in the area all of my life, and I used to get my ballet shoes from Josie in Crown Lane when I was a child, and I've used the shop throughout the years. And since I've had children, I used the shop for craft materials, for making things, pieces of felt, and so I've been quite a committed customer for many years, as were Carol and Karen. When we found out that Josie was finally retiring, well-deserved retirement, there was indignant outbursts. Really, people couldn't bear the thought of losing a shop like this. And actually Josie had done craft classes years and years ago, which I didn't know. But I was in the shop, I was looking around the space, which anybody who knew that shop, and most crafters will, it was an absolute delightful emporium of bits, bobs, and anything you needed to make something, cottons and threads, and even little toys, doll's house items. And it did seem like a real loss. And looking at the space, I could see the scope for having classes, making things. So if you could combine the use of retail of what you're selling with what you're making, so classes, recycling things, children making things, it could be something very, very interesting.
Yes, so let's go through that. But I mean, before we do that, I mean, the premises you've got where you've got your shop and you've got your classes, it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? It's got a history. I mean, it was Skate Attack, but before that, it was a shop that had existed in Palmer's Green from time memorial, way back, something that was very famous. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, so Grouts was a local institution. I mean, actually not only a local institution, historically it was probably one of the longest running drapers in the country. It actually opened in 1914 and stayed with Palmerston until 2002. Basically, for 60 years, it stocked haberdashery, underwear, corsetry, tea towels, and so many customers come in here and look around, and it looks incredibly different. It doesn't look the same, but people are very fond and nostalgic of what Grouse represented, the kind of personal service you could get, and also the fact that you could come in here and have a chat and basically get anything you wanted. Apparently at one point, 1,000 items in the window display. I can't promise that we've got 1,000 items yet. Obviously, we're just starting, we're a fledgling business, but we want to be able to provide. And obviously, the High Street is in a very different shape it was, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So yeah.
I actually remember Grouts. I mean, you'd go in, it was dark, it was like an Aladdin's cave. You couldn't find anything, but if you asked for something, they had everything. And I think it had these vacuum sort of containers where you would send your money through, and the change would come through to whoever was serving you. So it was a great place to be, and a great place for you to follow up on too in that premises. Now, you're not a sole ownership, or you're not a partnership either. You're a community enterprise. I mean, why did you choose that? What does that mean?
I think to us, the first thing is that we, being part of the community means we employ people that live in the community. So fortunately, we have found some very talented people who are both working in the shop, serving behind the counter, and are practitioners. So for example, a lady called Liz Fish, who has upcycled shirts, men's shirts into children's dresses and aprons, and gives 20% of her profits to charity. And she's a very talented seamstress. She also runs our soap making courses. We also have Denise Burrows, who is a brilliant crochet teacher and runs part of something called Natural Yarn Barn, and she's all about sustainability, which is one of our aims as part of a community enterprise, is to be sustainable. If you can't be sustainable when you're crafting and making things, if you can't reuse things, and I don't know when you can, because she can take t-shirt yarn out of fabric on the floor in factories and make it into baskets that you put your toothbrushes and toothpaste in. Instead of using makeup wipes for ladies, we can reuse things, and that's very important to us.
So who is, I mean, all these people are involved in what you do, but are they sort of members of the community enterprise, like on the board or whatever? How is it organized?
No, it's not a formal thing. I mean, in terms of, essentially, we obviously, as a community enterprise, we need to cover the costs like any operating business, but that money we make will go be invested back into the business. I pay my part-time staff. We do have a few volunteers, very kindly, that come in and make things, and we are going to be offering work experience placements. We've got a really talented student from East Barnet School, and another art student from Southgate Technical College. So that's how it's working. We also support local artists and crafters. We have pop-up tables where they can rent a little bit of space to show their wares. We've got a really talented artist called Ruth Chapman, her Joyful Heart, and she makes beautiful items, giftware and things like that.
So, I mean, is this just a local initiative, or are you part of a national organisation?
No, not at all. We're three women who came together through serendipity. We were saying what a shame it was that Josie's shop was closing. Surely there was a way we could do something similar. but bringing people into it and introducing new people, which is why we've got courses like Get to Know Your Sewing Machine, where we've heard so many stories, people coming in saying, I was bought a sewing machine for Christmas, I haven't got it out of the box, I did it 20 years ago, and we're giving them the opportunity to pay a very reasonable amount of money to come for 3 hours of tuition, and that gets you back on the path to making things, being sustainable, and you know, it's also very therapeutic, which is, you know, it's another area we can go into about why people, I think, now are taking up things like crafting more and more often than they did before.
So when serendipity got the three of you together and you talked over these ideas, I mean, it's a sort of daunting thing to do what you've done. How did you start? How did you get into it? What made it possible?
We just kept meeting up, and we just kept going through what our aims were. And you've just got to put one step in foot in front of the other, and you know, we relied on a lot of people helping us, getting advice, using the skills we already had. Carol has 40 years experience in teaching as a head teacher and in special needs education. She's a brilliant leader, she's passionate, she's enthusiastic, as is Karen, who's had 20 years experience as a businesswoman. And both of them are brilliant seamstresses and quilters. You can probably see in the background 2 of Carol's quilts. People are always asking if they can buy them when they come into the shop. They're too precious to her, irreplaceable. But she's run a very popular quilting class, and we're now running a follow-up quilting class in that domain. So we've used our skills. I like artistry. We're doing crafting classes for children at the weekend. We're going to run an activity every day for children. So we're using all those skills coming together and yeah, moving forward.
So, I mean, how did you sort of find the premises? How did you take that big step of, I wanted to do all these things, but I've got to find somewhere to do it?
Well, originally we looked into whether we could take over from the property at Crown Lane. It became quite clear early on that there were other businessmen in the area that were probably ahead of us in getting that property, and turned out to be true. And that was disappointing. But this community, M13 Palmer's Green, has been so supportive. And we met some local people, Dana Burstow, Palmer's Green Action Group, and they were really encouraging us. They meet in a cafe every week, and we were saying, how about somewhere in Palmer's Green? And obviously there are shops available. And Skate Attack, formerly Grouts, was empty. We came in here, and at the time it hadn't been done up. It was lying dormant, dusty, needed a lot of work. We met up with Stelios, the landlord, and we told him what we wanted to do, that we wanted a community enterprise. You know, we didn't have hardly any money. We'd invested, the 3 of us invested our own money to start up. And he was very sympathetic to our ideas, and has been incredibly supportive and helping us get set up.
So, I mean, you are sort of art and crafty people, but in order to do what you're doing, you also have to have a business mind, don't you? So you did have to have a business plan.
Yes, we did, and we formulated that business plan, looking at what's needed in the community, and what we need to do to be part of the community, the connections you need to make. Yes.
So the answer is yes to that. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But I mean, how do you get your income? Because you obviously have to have a run through. Is it through sales in the shop, or what else do you do that's profitable in that sort of non-profit way that you run?
It's not easy, and obviously it is going to be very challenging. And you know, we charge for our courses, but I think that I believe they're very reasonable. What we charge, and we obviously are hoping that people want to buy the products that we sell in connection with the crafts classes we run. So we sell anything from buttons to zips to fabrics of varying prices, and yes, that's how we've got to make money. So we're no different to any other business, really.
Yeah, and what about your classes? Do you charge for your classes at all? And is that an income?
Yes, we do. They're very, as I said, they're very competitive rates, and we have classes from all different prices, from free to, you know, depending on the skill that you're having to gain, and the complexity of what the skill the teacher's going to teach you. So the knit and natter today is completely free. We have some classes, some of the drop-in classes for children at £4. The get to know your sewing machine class, which is very popular, is £10 an hour to learn, you know, how to use your sewing machine to come out with a finished garment. That's 3 hours long to get to know.
Okay, I mean, I can't see the knitting too much, but I can certainly hear the natter, which is okay. I mean, do you want to swing around and show us the shop and all the sort of things you've got there? Because it looks really good.
Yeah.
So that's the knitting class, yeah?
And nattering away.
And nattering, yeah. And then...
Just to tell you about some of the ladies, we linked up with North Middlesex Hospital, and they are making baby hats, very much needed baby hats for the premature baby unit. And yes, we've made dozens of them. So they can come with their own projects, or they could come and make things like that, which I would appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we can see the shop in the background, which is quite large, and all of the tapestry and so on the wall, the quilts, and everything you have there. So it's a huge art enterprise you've got going, you know, at a local level.
Here's a range of some of our fabrics, and here's some of the work of one of our pop-up artists, Ruth. And we sell craft items for children. Fat quarters, of course, which if you're a quilter, you'll be very familiar with. And we also, right now, actually, we have another course running, which is machine patchworking. And our teacher, Pat, I'll just see if she wouldn't mind us just popping into our workshop. And hello, guys. We're just doing a webinar. Would you mind us just? No. Fine. Hi. Hello, this is Pat. This is Adrian. Hello. And yes, we are in the middle of machine patches. Yeah.
Okay.
To Pat, and she can just tell a little bit about what this is.
Hello. How nice to meet you. I found that most people like traditional patchwork. It's something that's been going for an awful long time. People think that they can't possibly do it. It looks so complicated. But when you've been given just the basic idea of how the patches go together, then really it is very simple. I mean, children of 3 used to do it. So I think most people have got the skills. They don't realise. They just need to be shown. So it's relatively simple. A lot of it is to do with the choice of shape that you cut and the choice of colour of your fabric. So that's all comes with experience. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it looks fantastic. I mean, I lived in Canada for 2 years, so I know quilting and doing patchwork like that. Everybody did it. So, you know, doing it here is great. Anyhow, so yeah, I can see the shop. It's large, and anyone who's been to Palmer's Green knows that shop and how big it is. I mean, so clearly we can see you are a shop, but we can see that you have classes as well. I mean, how many classes do you actually run?
Well, we did start rather ambitiously, but fingers crossed so far. It's all been greeted with a lot of enthusiasm and attendance, which is the main thing. I'll get to know your sewing machine course, as I said, sold out really quickly. All our classes we have to stick to small numbers, because otherwise you're not going to get quality of teaching. So, 6 to 8 are the maximum, usually 6 in the sewing machine classes. We have some lovely genome sewing bee. And yes, so our classes range from get to know sewing machine to embroidery, as I said, to the patchwork. We've also got, as I said, crochet. And then obviously once people have learned to use their sewing machine, we need to appeal to people who have also got more advanced skills, intermediate skills. So again, we have things like how to refashion your garment, which is a lovely course coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's take an existing piece of material. It might be that you've got a skirt that's too big, you want to make it into a shirt. We've got a teacher that can do that for you. So as I said, we've got the knitting, we've had learning to knit. We've also had we also have a stitching circle on a Wednesday night, which you can get a glass of wine with, which is quite nice. And we have got a jewellery maker, a really talented young lady called Nadia, who's coming in to do some jewellery making with us in the summer. And macrame coming up in the autumn, possibly mosaicing. So, the field is wide.
So how do you find people? I mean, how do you publicise yourself and get people to know about what you're doing?
Yes, I mean, the good old-fashioned putting up the poster in the window has been brilliant as people walk by, and we've done the usual way of putting flyers out, dropping them off at school bazaars. We'll do anything. But then also, obviously, social media is a very important part of that now. And we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we like to promote discussion. We're not afraid to have a chat about what we're doing and different activities. And there is a real sense of community out there. People asking, "Oh, would you sell? Have you got that type of thread? Have you thought of doing these classes?" And we want feedback. That's what's really important, because I think what I'm learning in the High Street is if you don't respond to what people need, you're not going to exist. You're not going to be here. So it's really important that we listen to what people want, and if we can provide it, we will.
So you respond to people's needs, but do you also get young people coming in who've never done these crafts before? And do you get sort of a kick out of the fact that you're recreating old crafts that maybe a lot of people would like to do but don't know how to do it?
Definitely, it is really satisfying. And most of us know that technology has been taking over for a lot of, if you have children and they want to have a mobile phone and they want to have all the latest computer games, and that's fine in small doses. But what about their motor neuron skills? What about using their hands? What about being able to sew when they get older and putting their hem up on their trousers? These are all skills that if we don't keep them going, they are going to the west. And we're going to have a whole generation of people that can't do these things. And they're going to need to, because we can't keep producing fashion and all items at the same rate as we did. We're running out of time, we're running out of space, and we need to make people more handy and be able to do things for themselves. So, even the kids' crafts, when they're doing looming or anything using their hands, using the scissors, it's basic skills, but they need to be preserved. It's really important.
So I might join you to learn how to put the hem up in my trousers. So you might see me one day. So you're not about, what's great about what you're doing is you're not about consumption. You're also about community, aren't you?
Yes. Consumption, community, reusing, recycling, and use it or lose it. And it's the same in a bigger dimension in terms of shops on the high street. If you walk on by and don't use the shop, then you won't see us in a year's time because you didn't use us, so you've lost us. And it's the same thing with the skills that we're trying to teach. If you want to retain these skills and you haven't got people around you that are doing those things anymore, or you want to learn from someone else, or you want to just come and share those skills with like-minded people, and be exposed to it, then that's the kind of creative community we're trying to encourage.
So in a way, you're a sort of, good example of how the high street can change, aren't you? High street's no longer just a shop you go into. It's a community, it's a place where people meet. And you see the high street developing that way. And in a way, you're a herald of the way things should be.
I hope so. I mean, I think if we don't develop in that way, then what really is the future? People use the parks, yes, people use restaurants, yes, people use cafes, but why not use other types of facilities and places where you can bring all those things together? The libraries are doing great things, and theatre spaces like the Dugdale. I have quite a few connections with them, and I love what they do there, and it's been very inspiring. And people should feel inspired, and they should take action, because I think everyone will look back with regret if we don't try to rejuvenate spaces, public spaces.
Well, I think you're doing that, very well, and I think it's a good example of how the high street can become a really convivial place where people can meet, and that's very important. So you've started, you've got some success, you've got a lot of success. You've got classes, got people coming in, people getting to know about you. I mean, it's a really interesting project. So how do you see your future? Where would you like to go?
I think we have got to take it step by step. There'll be ebb and flow. There will be times when trade isn't as high, peak summer, and we have to weather the storms, and we have to just keep responding to what people want, and hoping that people will embrace the skills we're trying to re-nurture in people, and keep coming back to us for more classes. And we're very open to developing in lots of different ways. As you see, it's a very big space, and it's a great opportunity to do innovative things, as well as traditional, and that's what reusing, recycling is all about. So that's how I see the future, and I hope people can share our ideas and vision.
I'm sure there are lots of people who'd love to share your ideas and take part in what you're doing. So if they do, I mean, how do they get in contact with you? Where do they find you? What do they do?
So basically, I would say the first thing is to come and see us in the shop, because then you'll see what we're offering and meet us. And we are in 397 Green Lanes, opposite Sainsbury's Local. We're in a lovely area spot. It's lovely on a bright summer's day. But we are also online. Our website, www.stitch.org.uk. And if you sign up to our newsletter, you'll get a weekly update of what we're doing. All the courses change week by week. We're also very lucky to have a few tickets with some really good crafting events. But if you sign up this week, you'll get entered for a competition for some tickets. And then also we're obviously active on Facebook at N13 Crafts, and also on Instagram and Twitter, Stitch_N13. So those are the ways. You can also email me at hello@stitch.org.uk. We'd love to hear from everybody. People who maybe have skills that they'd like to utilise. They might be a local practitioner that would like to come and teach, weaving, clay, pottery, all sorts, and then we can develop from there.
Okay, well, thank you, Suzanne, for doing that. I mean, that's an interesting interview from someone who's doing a really interesting and innovative project, and one that I think a lot of people will be interested in, and also as a model for the way the high street can develop. So I hope you do get people coming in, and I hope you go on from success to success. So thank you for doing it, Suzanne, and I'm sure we'll hear from you again in the future. Anyhow, we'll end this webinar interview now.